Get out of here right now. You are not my real father. Jessica's voice echoed like broken glass across a luxurious Beverly Hills living room. Her eyes, burning with fury, were fixed on the old man standing silently at the door. Marcus, 62 years old, clutched a worn-out suitcase, his hands trembling, not from age but from heartbreak. The very house he had built with his sweat and sacrifices was now spitting him out like a stranger. I raise you as my own, Jessica. His voice broke, soft yet heavy with pain. But before he could finish, her fiancé, Bradley Montenegro, lounging casually in a leather armchair, smirked with satisfaction. That's right, love. Bradley's cold tone cut the silence. It's about time you sent this driver out of your life. People like him don't belong in our world. Jessica's cheeks flushed with pride as she pointed to the door. Take your things and go, Marcus. I never want to see you again. And in that moment, the man who had sacrificed everything for his daughter was being erased from a perfect white world. The silence after Jessica's scream was deafening. Marcus turned his gaze toward the family photos hidden behind expensive trophies. Once, those pictures proudly decorated the living room. Now, only a few remained, tucked away as if his presence in her life was something to be ashamed of. As the heavy door slammed behind him, the story of his life replayed like a cruel film. 23 years ago, Jessica had been just a frightened 5-year-old girl. Her mother had passed away suddenly, and no one, no relatives, no family friends, wanted to take responsibility. Marcus, who had been nothing more than the family's driver, stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll take her," he had said, holding the little girl in his trembling arms. That night, when Jessica cried herself to sleep, it was Marcus who sat by her bed, softly humming songs until her tiny hands loosened their grip from his shirt. From that moment, he wasn't just her guardian. He became her father. Days blurred into years of sacrifice. Marcus worked 3 jobs, driving cars by day, cleaning offices by night, and working security shifts on weekends. His back ached, his hands cracked, but he never complained. Every extra dollar went into Jessica's future. When she wanted to join dance school, Marcus sold his car. When she needed books for college, he pawned his watch. During high school, while Jessica studied in the bigger bedroom, Marcus slept on the living room couch, telling her it was because he liked the fresh air. In truth, he wanted her to have the best, comforts he himself had never known. At every graduation, every achievement, Marcus was in the shadows, clapping the loudest. He was the one who cheered the hardest when Jessica got accepted into law school. But as Jessica climbed higher, she began to look down on him. At first, it was small things. Introducing him to her friends not as dad, but as Marcus, the man who helped me when I was a child. Then, it was avoiding him at social gatherings, saying she was too busy. Slowly, she stopped inviting him altogether. And then Bradley Montenegro entered her life. Wealthy, arrogant, polished, the heir of a construction empire. From the moment they met, Marcus noticed a change. Jessica began speaking differently, dressing differently, living for appearances. People at a country club think it's strange, Jessica once whispered. A successful lawyer still living with a driver. Marcus's heart had cracked that day, but he stayed silent. He thought love and patience could bridge the growing distance. But now, in the very house he had helped pay for with endless overtime and sleepless nights, Marcus stood accused of being a burden. The man who had given everything, his youth, his health, his dreams, was now thrown out like trash, all because he didn't fit into the glittering image of Jessica's new world. The next afternoon, Marcus's phone buzzed. He answered, his voice gentle as always. "Hello, Jessica." Her reply was cold, rehearsed. "Marcus, I forgot to tell you yesterday. Bradley's lawyer will send you some documents. You'll need to sign them immediately." Marcus frowned. "Documents?" "Yes," Jessica snapped. "It's about the house. Since you lived here for more than 2 years, apparently the law gives you some rights. But don't worry, we'll handle it. You just need to sign a waiver. We don't want misunderstandings about family property." Family property. The word stung like poison. He had built the garage with his own hands, laid every brick with care, renovated the garden so Jessica could play outside. And now, she wanted him erased from even the memory of the house. I understand, Marcus whispered. That evening, Jessica and Bradley hosted a lavish dinner at an elite restaurant. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, champagne flowed, and laughter echoed. Marcus had been asked to bring the signed papers. He arrived quietly, wearing his old suit, his hands trembling as he clutched the envelope. Bradley spotted him instantly, smirking as though the whole evening was designed for this humiliation. Ah, Marcus. Right on time. Very punctual for a driver. Laughter rippled among Bradley's friends. Jessica looked around nervously, pretending not to notice the stares from her colleagues. "Do you have the papers?" she demanded, avoiding eye contact. Marcus nodded silently, sliding the envelope across the table. He felt every eye on him, judging, mocking, reducing him to nothing. Bradley leaned forward, his voice dripping with venom. "See, Jessica? Soon, no one will even know this man was connected to you. Just a shadow from the past. We're finally free of embarrassment." For a moment, time froze. Marcus's mind wandered back to Jessica's childhood. The night she clung to his shirt, terrified of thunderstorms. The mornings he walked her to school with a packed lunch made from his skipped meals. The proud smile on her face when she won her first trophy, looking for him in the crowd. He wanted to scream, "I gave up everything for you. I loved you more than my own life." But he stayed silent. Instead, Marcus looked at Jessica with an expression she had never seen before. Not anger, not despair, but something unsettling, calmness. The calmness of a man who knew a truth too powerful to reveal just yet. "Thank you, Jessica," he said softly, signing the papers without hesitation. His voice carried no bitterness, no accusation, just a quiet acceptance. Jessica blinked, momentarily thrown off. Bradley chuckled. "Good boy, Marcus. That's the spirit. Know your place." The guests laughed, raising their glasses. To them, it was entertainment. To Jessica, it was relief. But to Marcus, it was liberation. As he stepped out of the glittering restaurant into the cool night air, the weight of years of sacrifice seemed to lift off his shoulders. He was no longer clinging to the hope that Jessica would see his worth. What no one in that room knew, not Jessica, not Bradley, not the snickering elites, was that Marcus was far from powerless. His silence wasn't defeat. It was strategy. His humility wasn't weakness. It was patience. And while they celebrated a supposed downfall, Marcus walked away carrying a secret that would soon shatter their perfect little world. The night air was cold as Marcus walked away from the glittering restaurant, but his steps were steady. For the first time in years, he felt strangely free. The world thought he had lost everything, but only Marcus knew the truth. He had been preparing for this moment all along. The next morning, Marcus sat in a small cafe on the edge of town. It was the same cafe where, decades ago, he had once worked as a night cleaner just to buy Jessica's school books. The smell of coffee and the worn wooden tables hadn't changed. Marcus, a warm voice pulled him from his thoughts. It was Robert Chun, an old friend from those hard days. Once a fellow janitor, Robert now owned a modest but successful security company. He embraced Marcus with genuine affection. "It's been years. How's Jessica? I heard she became a big lawyer." Marcus's smile was tired. "Yes, she did. But yesterday she told me I'm no longer her father." Robert's face darkened as Marcus recounted the betrayal. The shouting, the papers, the humiliation at the dinner. By the end, Robert slammed his fist on the table. "After everything you did for her, I remember, Marcus. You skipped meals, sold your car, worked 3 jobs, and this is how she repays you." Marcus stirred his coffee quietly. "She doesn't remember, or maybe she just doesn't care." Robert leaned closer. "So what now? What will you do?" Marcus's lips curled into the faintest smile, the kind that came not from joy, but from quiet power. "Do you remember when I told you I was saving? Years ago, when Jessica was in college?" Robert nodded. "Yeah, but I thought it was just a few shares. Nothing serious." Without a word, Marcus pulled out his phone. On the screen was a banking app showing an investment account. Robert's eyes widened. nearly spilling his drink. Marcus, is this real? $5.5 million. Marcus nodded calmly. 15 years ago, I invested the settlement money for my brother's accident into a small technology company. Everyone said it was risky, but I believed in it. That company grew more than 1,200%. I never told Jessica. I want to know if she loved me for who I am, not for what I own. Robert sat back, stunned. So, while she's ashamed of you, you've been a millionaire this whole time? Marcus's eyes grew serious. Wealth doesn't impress me, Robert. Sacrifice does. Loyalty does. I wanted her to learn those values, but she chose appearances instead. Robert hesitated. Then what's your plan? Revenge. Marcus shook his head firmly. No, revenge is easy. Anyone can destroy. But true strength is building something greater. I'll give her exactly what she asked for. I'll disappear from her life. But when she sees who I really am, she'll understand what she threw away. Not because I'll hurt her, but because I'll help others. He slid a napkin across the table, scribbling a phone number. Do you still have contacts in the business community? Robert frowned. A few. Why? Call this man, Jonathan Harrison, one of the top financial consultants in Los Angeles. Tell him I want to discuss investments, significant ones. Robert stared at the number, then at Marcus. Are you serious? Marcus, what exactly are you planning? Marcus stood, adjusting his worn cap. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a fire Jessica and Bradley had never seen. Jessica wants me to disappear as a social embarrassment. I'll give her that. But when I return, I won't be the Marcus she remembers. I'll be the Marcus she never truly knew. As he walked out of the cafe, the weight of years of humiliation transformed into a quiet determination. Every insult, every dismissal had been fuel for this moment. The world was about to see that underestimating Marcus Williams was the costliest mistake anyone could make. The Beverly Hills Country Club glittered under golden chandeliers. Rolls Royces and Ferraris lined the entrance. Photographers flashing at every new guest stepping onto the red carpet. Inside, crystal glasses clinked and laughter filled the air as the elite mingled. Jessica and Bradley walked in like royalty. Jessica wore a designer gown worth more than Marcus had earned in years, her hand proudly linked to Bradley's arm. Finally, an event worthy of us, she whispered, adjusting the pearl necklace he gifted her. Bradley smirked. No embarrassing people to ruin the evening. Tonight we shine. They moved from table to table, shaking hands, greeting colleagues, their arrogance on full display. Jessica laughed loudly, tossing her hair, while Bradley bragged about his family's empire. But whispers buzzed through the crowd about tonight's mysterious host. A millionaire investor, someone said, a man funding scholarships and community centers. Jessica frowned, intrigued. Who is he? She asked her colleague Sarah. No one knows for sure, Sarah replied. His name is Marcus Williams, but apparently he prefers to stay discreet. Jessica froze at the name. Marcus? It couldn't be. Surely not her Marcus. At exactly 8 p.m., Jonathan Harrison, the renowned financial consultant, stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice booming across the hall. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is my honor to introduce a man whose vision and generosity will change countless lives. A man investing millions into scholarships for underprivileged children and funding community centers for families in need. Please welcome Mr. Marcus Williams. The spotlight turned. Gasps rippled across the room. Jessica's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Bradley stiffened beside her, eyes widening in disbelief. There he was, Marcus, but not the man they thought they had cast aside. He stood tall in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, calm, confident, radiating dignity. As he walked to the podium, the applause was thunderous. People rose to their feet, clapping, cheering. Good evening, Marcus began, his voice steady yet commanding. Tonight, we are here for something greater than wealth or status. We are here to ensure that children, no matter where they come from, can have the same opportunities as anyone in this room. The audience nodded, inspired. Jessica's face turned pale. Bradley clenched his jaw, whispering, "Is this your Marcus?" Marcus paused, scanning the crowd until his eyes met Jessica's. His gaze was calm, but his words cut like a knife. "A week ago, I was told I was no longer a father. I was told that I didn't belong in a certain social circle, that my presence was an embarrassment." A murmur spread across the hall. Cameras clicked furiously, sensing the drama. "What those people didn't know," Marcus continued, "was that the sacrifices I made, working 3 jobs, selling my car, giving up everything, were never for myself. They were for someone I loved. But love, it seems, was not enough. I was rejected because I was considered poor." The crowd gasped. All eyes darted toward Jessica, whose face flushed crimson. Bradley tugged at his collar, sweat forming on his brow. "But tonight," Marcus raised his voice, "I want to prove something. True wealth is not the money you hide in banks or the diamonds you wear. True wealth is using what you have to lift others higher." He opened a folder, holding up a document. "Therefore, I am pledging $5.5 million towards scholarships for underprivileged youth, so that no child will ever feel less than another because of where they came from or how much money they have." The hall erupted in applause. People rising to their feet, clapping louder than ever. Some even cheered Marcus's name. Jessica's legs shook beneath her gown. Bradley leaned toward her, hissing angrily, "You never told me he had money. $5 million? Are you insane?" Her throat went dry, words choking in silence. She had abandoned the very man she had once called father, only to discover he was wealthier, more respected, and far greater than anyone in this room. And as the cameras flashed, capturing every flicker of humiliation on Jessica's face, Marcus simply smiled, not in arrogance, but in peace. He had won not by destroying her, but by proving his worth in front of the world. The ballroom was silent, except for the furious clicking of cameras. Every guest's gaze had shifted toward Jessica, whose face burned crimson. She tried to hold her chin high, but whispers filled the air like daggers. "Isn't that her father?" one woman muttered. "She called him poor, but he's the one funding this gala," another replied. Imagine rejecting the very man who raised you. The weight of humiliation pressed down on Jessica's shoulders until she could barely breathe. Bradley, her fiancé, quietly slid his arm away from hers, his expression hard with disappointment and calculation. For him, appearances were everything, and now she was the embarrassment. At the podium, Marcus stood calm and composed, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "True wealth," he said, pause and let the words echo, "is not measured in bank accounts, cars, or country club memberships. True wealth is measured in love, in sacrifice, in respect." The crowd listened intently, their eyes fixed on him. "I was told I didn't belong," Marcus continued, his gaze piercing Jessica's trembling form. "But belonging means humiliating those who love us. Then I am proud to stand apart. Because wealth that does not come with respect is nothing but an empty shell." His words hung heavy in the air, each syllable like a mirror forcing the room to reflect on her own values. Then, slowly, applause began. One guest clapped, then another, until the entire hall erupted. People rose to their feet, giving Marcus a standing ovation. The sound thundered through the room, drowning out Jessica's shallow breaths. She clutched Bradley's arm desperately, whispering, "Say something, do something." But Bradley pulled away coldly. "You never told me the truth. You hid it, and now everyone knows." With that, he stepped aside, leaving her trembling alone in the middle of the crowd. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she saw clearly. The man she had thrown out as an embarrassment was the only person who had ever truly loved her. And she had lost him, lost his respect, because she valued money over the very love that made her who she was. As Marcus stepped down from the stage, his head held high, Jessica collapsed into a chair, the sound of applause echoing in her ears like a cruel reminder of the mistake that had cost her everything. Weeks passed. The scandal at the gala spread like wildfire. Jessica's law firm quietly let her go, fearing damage to their reputation. Bradley broke off the engagement the very next morning, saying coldly, "I can't risk my image." Meanwhile, Marcus thrived. With his millions, he launched the Williams Foundation, funding schools and scholarships for underprivileged youth. Newspapers hailed him as the millionaire with a heart. One rainy evening, Jessica stood outside his new office, tears streaming down her face. "Dad," she whispered, her voice breaking for the first time in years. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me." Marcus looked at her gently. "Forgiveness is easy, Jessica, but respect must be earned. If you truly want to change, work with me at this foundation. Help the children who remind me of you." Jessica nodded through her sobs. For the first time, she understood the meaning of true wealth. Studio microphone narrator. Have you ever been underestimated by someone? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories of love, betrayal, and redemption.